Right now, Brazil is living through a transition. So in 2018, Bolsonaro got elected. Bolsonaro is a fascist, far-right president. We now have the elections in October. The poll shows that the most likely candidate to win is Lula. Lula has a really big advantage upon Bolsonaro. So it's very likely, and that's what we think will happen, Lula will be elected. However, Bolsonaro will not give up very easily. He knows that he cannot win the election through the ordinary votes. So what Bolsonaro is trying to do now is to create a turmoil in the elections, and he will do everything he can to create a chaos in the election. He wants to radicalize his social base, make sure that he can push this social base further and further to his political project, which is a fascist political project. However, the population in overall, they have a strong understanding that we need to take Bolsonaro out. And I think that that's how people perceive the election of Lula as well, as a big opportunity to take Bolsonaro out of power. So people have a lot of expectation, especially working class people, especially the social movements, the activism, the social labor, the labor movement have the high expectations that we will be able to take Bolsonaro out through the election of Lula. Yes, I think it's very possible, and I think it's very likely that Bolsonaro will try something like a coup. It's hard to tell exactly the shape of it, but he for sure will make some kind of attempt. I think that the first attempt will be now on the 7th of September, which is the national day. Bolsonaro is already calling people to go to the streets. Very likely the tensions will build up a lot after these protests. Bolsonaro has the support of the most radical parts of the police forces. Bolsonaro has a really strong connection with the army. So his vice president is a former army general. His new vice president candidate is also a former general. So, however, although I think he will attempt a coup, he will not succeed. You cannot do a military coup in Brazil without the support of the imperialist bourgeoisie. So, and Bolsonaro does not have the support of the international community, of the international bourgeoisie to do so. He does not even have the support of a significant part of the national bourgeoisie to a project like this. So Bolsonaro faces a strong opposition from the media, which is a big power of the national bourgeoisie in the country. So, but this attempt is important for him to radicalize his social base and leave power, making a strong statement. Well, I think that the first and the most important reason is the economic situation. So Bolsonaro's government, for various different reasons, was not able to not even push for any significant kind of economic agenda. The only things that Bolsonaro managed to do was to do a very strong labor reform and a very strong pension reform. Of course, these both very neoliberal policies did not help the working class conditions. On the opposite, actually. So the working class conditions during Bolsonaro's government deteriorated quite fast. And of course, then there was the pandemic as well. And Bolsonaro's position towards the pandemic of denying vaccines, denying any kind of social isolation, making fun of people who died of COVID, denying the disease, made him to be very demoralized, in the opinion of most of the working class, because the working class suffered a lot during the pandemic. They lost many people. Brazil had 600,000 of deaths. So the working class saw in a very short period of time its life conditions to deteriorate really fast. So that was one of the main reasons, and I would say the main reason why the working class abandoned Bolsonaro. And also his attempts of harassing the media, journalists, attacking democracy also did not find significant support among the working class. Bolsonaro's biggest support base now is basically part of the middle classes, part of the petite bourgeoisie, part of the agribusiness and social basis of that, of those areas in the country. No, I don't think so. I think Lula presents his old compromising project. So Lula vice president, for example, is what used to be the candidate of the right for many, many years. And that really demonstrates not only what is the political project of Lula, but what we can expect for the next period under his government. I think, of course, it's not going to be as bad as Bolsonaro. The way that the Labour government implements the neoliberal policies are not in the same way as the traditional right, or not even close, of the far right. However, that's what we can expect from Lula's government. The government in Latin America will face in the next period a very difficult economic scenario. There's a very thin margin for doing social programs or concessions to the working class. Lula is openly negotiating with the national bourgeoisie, with the imperialistic bourgeoisie, with many parties of the right wing of the country. He constantly makes meetings with the financial sectors of the country to make sure that there will be absolutely no radical change. And even the national bourgeoisie also have already made an experience with Lula governments, and the Lula governments have been very generous with the national bourgeoisie. So I don't think we should expect anything very different from that. PSOL has a very proud history of independency and a very proud history of being in opposition to the Labour government. So PSOL in every election has presented its own candidate, has presented to the working class a radical anti-capitalist program. And also because of that, PSOL grew a lot in the past 10 years with this anti-capitalist program, or at least like a radical social program. However, in this election, PSOL had to face a very different situation. In one hand, we have a fascist in power that we have to take out of power, and on the other hand, we have Lula back to the elections after all his condemnations were cancelled by the Supreme Court. And Lula was the only candidate who could take Bolsonaro out of power. So PSOL did a very brave decision of not standing or not presenting a presidential candidate this time, and that's the first time PSOL does so, to support Lula. It was not an easy debate inside the party because PSOL has this strong tradition of presenting its own candidate in the elections, but this situation was different. So PSOL understood that we could not be perceived as an obstacle to take Bolsonaro out of power, and that it's really what should be the priority of the left and of the working class organizations at this moment. Taking Bolsonaro out of power is a matter of survivance for the working class. It's a matter of defending the democracy and the democratic rights that we have in the country. Of course, that we also understand that we're not going to beat fascism in the elections. That's not how you beat fascism. So what PSOL has to do, and I think that that's the big challenge we have, is to make sure that we defeat and smash fascism on the streets. The Labour and PT project is to defeat Bolsonaro in the elections. That's not our project. Our project is to defeat Bolsonaro through mass mobilizations, through the organization of the working class, and in this process, present to the working class a political project that is and a very brave that we had to do. I think that once we finish this transition in power and we are sure that Lula has taken the power, has removed Bolsonaro of the election, then I think PSOL will face a very important debate of what to do under Lula governments, having in mind that you will have a fascist opposition. And I think that here PSOL has to be very convicted of its program, of its position of independency, of the defense of the working class, and be a really strong opposition to the neoliberal policies that surely will come under Petit's government. I think it's very important that PSOL keeps to present to the working class population an anti-capitalist alternative. Otherwise, as we see now in the United States, fascism will only grow up again. Because once we have the left now implementing the neoliberal policies, the working class conditions have to understand that the solution for this is not to get back to the right or the far right, but is to push and to move to an anti-capitalist solution. So I think that that's what should be the stance of PSOL for the next period.
Okay, Matteo, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nico.